Charles II of Spain, disfigured, mentally tormented, and dead by 38, was the last of his line. It was the inevitable result of centuries of royal inbreeding. But how did one of Europe's greatest dynasties dig its own grave? What twisted logic drove them to repeatedly marry their own cousins and nieces, generation after generation? The Habsburgs didn't start out as European overlords. They started out as minor nobles in what is now Switzerland during the 11th century. But through a series of savvy political marriages and strategic alliances, they clawed their way to the top. By combining military skill, political savvy, and focusing on acquiring lands through diplomacy and marriage rather than war alone, they built one of the most enduring dynasties in European history. They had a saying, "Let others wage war, you, lucky Austria, marry." They were a political superpower for over 600 years, ruling Spain, Austria, Hungary, the Holy Roman Empire, and even parts of the New World. Cousin married cousin, nieces and uncles became spouses, generation after generation. And as these marriages continued, the genetic consequences started piling up. By the 16th century, the consequences of Habsburg inbreeding were visible in the faces of the family. The shrinking gene pool gave rise to the infamous Habsburg jaw, a severe deformity born from generations of incestuous marriages. But the Habsburg jaw was more than a physical oddity. It caused serious issues, speech impairments, difficulty eating, and was just one visible symptom. Charles V, who was Holy Roman Emperor during the first half of the 16th century, the first ruler whose empire was so vast that it was said the sun never set on his domains. His parents were first cousins. He had a very prominent Habsburg jaw. He also had fainting spells, which might have been epilepsy and may have been linked to inbreeding. Around 100 years after his death, the full extent of this problem would be embodied in Charles II of Spain, the last Habsburg king of Spain. Charles II was born in 1661, and his parents were uncle and niece. Historians and geneticists have calculated that Charles II was the product of about 200 years of continuous inbreeding. A genetic study showed that his inbreeding coefficient, a measure of inbreeding, was around 0.25. equivalent to the offspring of a brother and sister. This level of inbreeding had accumulated and was the result of 16 generations of Habsburg intermarriage, where family members, especially cousins, married within the dynasty. Known as El Hechizado, meaning the bewitched, Charles II was born into unimaginable wealth and power, but his Habsburg jaw was so extreme that he had trouble with simple tasks like chewing his food. He suffered from physical deformities and infertility. He couldn't walk or talk properly until he was 4. Despite all this, he was very active and spent much of his time out hunting, and reports at the time say that he was taking an active part in government. When Charles II died childless in 1700, the Spanish Habsburg line came to a crashing end. The War of Spanish Succession began, as rival European powers fought for control of the Spanish Empire. And if you enjoyed this dive into strange history, be sure to check out this video about the history of being hanged, drawn, and quartered. Thanks for watching.